Welcome back, Kerbalots. Today we're going to continue our mission here to the moon, or Mun, or however you want to pronounce it. So when we last left, we just barely fired our engines and headed on this trajectory. It's going to take us 30 kilometers away from the moon. That's really, really low. Why are we going so low? There's two reasons. First of all, you can get some science by passing really close to the moon, and so we'll get the science that you can get from close to the moon but still pretty far away, and the really, really close moon missions. The second one is something called the Oberth Effect. The Oberth Effect basically says that the best time to do an acceleration is when you are close, when you're moving fast relative to another body, and you'll get the maximum efficiency out of your engines. It's part of why we did the horizontal movement pretty early in the rocket, and you can really, really see what happens with the Oberth Effect here. It'll only take a little tiny amount of fuel to get into an elliptical orbit here, whereas if we were further out, it would take quite a bit more fuel. It's kind of difficult to understand, but so we see that if we keep going without doing any kind of acceleration at all, we're going to actually escape the bounds of Kerbin, but we don't really want to do that yet. Poor Jebediah, he'll run out of snacks, and that's no fun. You can see a little capsule here. Do you really want to be on this thing for weeks on end? Yeah, I didn't think so either. Okay, so let's continue on. Well, let's have Jebediah go out and get the science that he collected before. So we took some temperature readings. Nope, we didn't. Oh, we're high in space now. Cool. This is now the furthest that we've ever been away from Kerbin. So we're gonna go ahead and log some measurements. Gonna go collect these ones. Which basically involves going out and looking very carefully at the barometer. Even silly Jebediah can do it. Excellent pilot, not so great of a scientist. Okay. So, at this point in time, there's really not much else to do but to warp to here. Here's the moon coming closer and closer. Now, the transition point here is the point at which the moon's gravity will affect it more than Kerbin's. And in reality, this is something called the Hill Sphere. It's a real thing, it exists. The Earth's Hill Sphere goes out to about 4 times the orbit of the moon, roughly. So you can orbit up to that far away. So we're going to pass relatively slow through this region, and the reason why is because some earlier versions of Kerbal have had some problems if you warped too fast through that boundary. Newer versions aren't so bad, but okay. Here we are. We're now officially in orbit of the moon. Not in orbit, but flying by the moon. So there's Kerbin in a near eclipse state, and where is it? You can see the moon about the same size at this point in time. Not entirely a coincidence. So Jebediah is going to get out. Actually, before we do that, let's log the data so we can go out and collect it. Gotta get that all-important science. Surprisingly, there's no atmospheric pressure when you're this far away from the moon. I don't know who would have ever thought of that. Okay, so let's keep going. Gonna fly here a little bit closer. So one thing you'll notice that with Kerbal Space Program, when you accelerate in a time warp, it will stop moving your vehicle. Reality wouldn't actually do that, but, well, yeah. Because video game. Okay, so let's take a quick peek here. What happens when we do this? We actually want to decelerate. So if we accelerated, we'd obviously go further out, but we want to decelerate relative to the moon. And you see, to get into a really elliptical orbit, only takes 130 meters per second. Not very much at all. If we did this at a different point in time, you could still achieve orbit. Whoops, wrong direction again. But it would take quite a bit more fuel. And you'd end up in kind of a wonky orbit, but even if your periapsis was there, you wouldn't end up in the wonky orbit, and you would have to take quite a bit more fuel. And if we tried to do it from here, it'd be even worse. Ah! That's not good. Looks like we had a slight engine malfunction. Do we still have enough fuel to orbit? I think we're gonna have to plan our trajectory back home. So let's go ahead, curve this. It's 134. It's actually not going to hurt us to orbit. We're going to do a really high orbit here just for a moment. For one orbit of the moon, but it's going to be pretty elliptical because of our little malfunction there. We don't have a ton of fuel left, and we're pretty far out there, so... Okay. So we're just going to go ahead and target the retrograde. We're going to go ahead and do our burning. Actually, let's wait a few seconds. Wow. Jebediah is just really anxious to be orbiting the moon here. And actually, while we're here, gonna take some quick science. We won't actually get out to do this until we have completed our burn. Okay, so now we're officially in orbit. Yay! We're gonna come back to the same point in time. Well, let's have Jebediah come out, collect the science data, take that data. He's gonna pick up all the data because in order to have more than one crew report, this is how you have to do it. Silly thing in Kerbal Space Program, but that's just what you gotta do. And actually, did he do an EVA report? Oh. So for the EVAs, you can actually get different reports based off of where you are. What you're over. So they have different biomes, like the lowlands and the highlands and whatnot. So depending, so Midlands here got a different one. Good. Okay, so we're doing pretty fantastic at this point in time. So let's go ahead and warp to our next maneuver. Why are we moving so slow? Jebediah. Okay, warp here. There we go. So we're in a nice wide orbit of the moon. So because we don't have very much fuel, we want to actually time this so that it's perfect. And the way that we want to do it is so that we're accelerating away from the moon, because we have to do that to get into the away. But we have to time it such that that's a deceleration from Kerbin. And you'll see that we're moving in this direction. Once we leave the influence of the moon, we're going to naturally be heading back towards the planet. And that'll be a little bit more obvious when I have my maneuver node here. So you can see we're actually going to head pretty close to Kerbin. Good. And it looks like there's not a lot better we can do. So this is only taking us 25 meters per second. Not very much fuel at all. But it'll make a huge difference in our orbit. Okay, let's time warp. We gotta get this one perfect, so no mistakes this time, Jebediah. We gotta get you home. Actually, that should be the absolute best place to do it. Let's see if it makes any difference. So we're just kind of rotating around, so it's not absolutely perfect, but considering we're in such an elliptical orbit, it's probably the best we're gonna do. So let's go ahead and warp to our maneuver here. What we'll do is, once we get into interplanetary space, then we will we'll do another quick burn to have us actually enter the atmosphere of Kerbal here. Kerbin. Kerbal is the star in the Kerbin system. So Jebediah is waving bye to the moon. Done a couple of orbits. Now the astronauts, they actually orbited quite a bit lower than this, the moon, all of them. Even when they were just doing the test missions. So you see that we're leaving the moon, and so here, we'll slow down, time warp. The best place to burn would be at the Apple Oasis again, but let's just see how much of a burn it would take to get us back home. That's a decent burn. Let's go ahead and do it at the optimal point in time, considering we really don't have a lot of fuel left. Yeah, see, that takes half the fuel when you do it at the optimal point in time. And we're not that far from the optimal point in time either. So one thing, well, I'll point out something about elliptical orbits here in a moment. Let's go ahead and burn right about here. So we're going to point retrograde. So we're going to try to aim for about a 35 kilometer periapsis. That's going to be well in the atmosphere, but it's still going to allow us to slow down. You have to get below the atmosphere to even have a chance. So we're in the atmosphere now, so we will eventually return to Kerbin. We have a contract to test a heat shield flying pretty fast inside the atmosphere at 30 kilometers. So we're gonna try. I don't think that's quite right. We're gonna turn off for stability. We have so little How much energy do we have left? Oh, we have plenty. We have plenty, so we'll go ahead and go to prograde. So we're just gonna do just a smidgen. There we go. Okay, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay. So, next stop, Kerbin. Let's just go ahead and warp to our orbit here. Now, one thing you'll notice here, I'm going to slow down the time warp a little bit. When we're far out of an elliptic, we're in a very, very elliptical orbit now. And at the far parts of the elliptical orbit, you'll actually be moving slower than you will when you're close. So look at the speed. The speed was very, very slow when we were that far out. It's getting faster and faster the closer we come in. So you only spend a very, very small part of your orbit going at your top speed. It's one of the more realistic parts of Kerbal Space Program. Okay. Actually, let's go ahead and retrograde. And let's ditch our booster here. We'll be fine. Bye-bye, booster. What just happened? Ooh. This sometimes happens in Kerbal Space Program. Basically, we skipped through. We were moving so fast that we missed the atmosphere. And so the physics stepped right over the atmosphere, and so we effectively didn't hit it. That happens with time warp, but that's okay. We'll be fine. Obviously, that's not a realistic thing, but that's okay. Where's our booster stage? Huh. It must have re-entered. Alright. So we're going real fast, but we have a heat shield. And we're pointed in the optimal way, and we don't have any weird protrusion things like we often have. Let's see if we're actually going to meet the criteria for this testing of the heat shield. I'm a little bit dubious, but we'll give it a shot. Now we're still moving fast. Maybe we actually will do it. Heat shield's starting to really heat up. That's okay. It's meant to take it. Come on. You can do it. So now I'm officially in the suborbital speeds. I've slowed down so much that we're suborbital. That's good. Okay, but you're in the speed range now. Now if we can just get in the altitude range. We're almost there. Come on. Come on. Oh! So close. I should have gone a little bit more shallow. That's okay. Oh well, I'll do it offline. You guys don't have to sit and watch me figure out how to hit such a fast re-entry trajectory. It'll be fine. Yep, Jebediah is happy because he's coming home. He knows we're slowing down now plenty. Whee. Take a quick view. Jebediah doesn't even have any windows. Poor guy. Now we're going... Still too fast for parachutes, but we're still pretty high up. We're gonna make it. Looks like it's gonna be an ocean landing. Yeah, we'll go ahead and fire the parachute just for safekeeping. pretty much landed. So next time, we should have enough science from this mission to allow us to get the parts to have more than one passenger in the vehicle without having some crazy looking vehicle. And so we're going to take some tourists up into space around Kerbin. I'm sure they enjoy that. It'd be great to do that myself. Of course, we know there's only been a very few tourists in space. I think there's been 5 of them. They all went to the International Space Station. They all launched on Russian vehicles. I have a feeling that's going to change pretty soon. If we're lucky. Next maybe 5 to 10 years. But anyways, thanks for joining me. Let me know what you think. If you've got any questions, leave me a comment, and we'll see you next time. Take care.